Welcome everybody to the 5th episode of Lights and Dice. We're back, and today we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to do a bit of a history lesson, I suppose, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Black Book. And I haven't quite decided what to call this episode yet, but I guess that'll come to me. I'm joined as always by Chris. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thank you. Doing good. It feels like it's been a while. Life is just crazy busy at the moment. You know when you have those sort of stupidly busy times? Like, it's been nonstop.
Well, it has. And I think congratulations are in order for Crystal Palace.
Oh, one. Yeah. Amazing.
I mean, we always talk about how we don't want to date ourselves in these podcasts too much, but you should know it'll always be in history. So whenever people listen to this, it'll still be true. So there you go.
It literally, because as you know, I went to the final. We're talking about the FA Cup final for those that aren't quite sure what the hell we're going on about.
English football.
Yeah. So the team I support is Crystal Palace, and we have never won a major trophy until now. And oh my God, it took me literally, I think, a week to get over it. If we'd have tried to record that week, I had no voice.
Well, that could have been more fun too.
Yeah, we
want booze, Steve.
I think you were basically trying to tell me you wanted me to talk less.
No. Well, I think if we're doing a history lesson, I think you might be talking more here. So
yeah, well, maybe. But it was great. It was a great day out. It was, amazing, support there. And yeah, I'm still getting over it. I'm still getting over the shock. And European football now for the first time too at Selhurst Park. So that's cool.
Sweet.
All right. So let's get into today's topic because that's what people are really listening for. And what I wanted to talk about today is the Black Book. This is something that I think has intrigued people for a long, long time and continues to intrigue people for today. And I was trying to a while ago read up on this, and I sort of struggled to find I don't want to say a definitive history because that's not what this is going to be, but I struggled to find a really good sort of overview of the history of this thing. And so I decided to do a little bit of research, and I thought today I would sort of try and share that with you through this episode.
Sounds good.
And I think
as long as you didn't find that you were in the Black Book.
No, well, thank God I'm not. That would suck.
Well, you did say it was a rough week, so
yeah, it was a rough. But I always think of Vegas as one of those places where you sort of is a city that you can thrive on sort of second chances. You can walk into a casino with $20, and you can walk out with 20 grand. You can reinvent yourself. You can take risks. You could change your life in a single spin, whether that be a slot machine or the roulette table. But there's sort of one second chance you'll probably never get, and that's if your name ends up in the Black Book. And even the name kind of sounds ominous, right? It's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like it's like something out of a mafia movie.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, it could go several ways, right? I mean, you talk about maybe casino hosts or whatever, or people with a client book sometimes refer to it as a Black Book, but maybe I think it's all in cell phones now, so now there's only one bad Black Book.
Yeah, so for those listening who are wondering what the hell are they talking about, what is the Black Book? The Black Book is officially known as, are you ready for the really exciting title? The official title of this is The List of Excluded Persons. Apparently that's the official title, which kind of takes away from that sort of ominous name that we were just referencing. But yeah, so the List of Excluded Persons. And it's supposedly, according to the Nevada Gaming Commission, one of the most powerful tools that they have. Essentially, if your name goes in it, you're banned from every casino in the state. And I'm not just talking about the Vegas Strip, not just the big ones, every single licensed gaming property. So from Reno to Laughlin to dusty backroad slot parlors, you're effectively banned.
I mean, let's be real too. If you're at that point in Nevada, you're probably out there in most other places too, because I'm sure you've tried your hand there as well. I'm sure. Well,
this is true, and what makes it kind of fascinating is the fact, though, that you don't actually even have to be necessarily caught cheating to end up in the book, which I was quite surprised about, and I'm going to sort of touch on that as we go through. But to take it back to start our little history lesson, you have to go back and really understand why this book even exists. And to do that, we have to go back. I want you to imagine transporting yourself back now to the Vegas of the 1940s and 1950s. So we haven't got any mega resorts yet. We haven't got corporate ownership. Vegas is still that neon outpost in the desert. And it's a gold mine for the American mob. So do you know when gambling was legalized in Nevada?
Well, I know Golden Gate was the first hotel in 1905. I guess, legalized could be the real question, right? The short answer is no, I don't. And I feel like since you've looked into this, you probably do.
Well, I hope I'm right, because I think, this is what I believe, it was actually legalized in 1931. Although that seems a little late to me, but I'm going to go with it. Maybe we're going to get lots of emails correcting us here, but I believe...
Well, and that's what I mean, too. I think it's just really when you come down to when it's sanctioned, because obviously, it's been happening since the beginning of time, right?
Yeah.
But, so whether or not... who knows if it was technically illegal until it was legal, or if it was a gray area, or... people were definitely gambling before the 1930s, let's put it that way.
Could have been one of those things that, a blind eye was turned. Kind of
and it's possible that some of those
smoking
people who
weed
were gambling
everywhere.
before then are in the Black Book.
Well, yeah, true. So, but apparently it was legalized during the Great Depression. Great Depression being in the 1930s. But for a long time, it was sort of low stakes, card rooms, dice and saloons, small time stuff, as I would call it.
Speakeasies.
Yeah. They're fashionable again now, though, aren't they?
Did they ever really go out of style?
Well, this is the thing.
It's like a double-breasted suit. Just forever.
Yeah, we'll agree to disagree on that one. But anyway, this all changed though after World War II, because that's when the mob effectively moves in to Nevada as a whole. And you have these sort of organized crime syndicates from Chicago, from New York, from Kansas City, from Detroit. And they it's almost like a light bulb moment where they see Vegas for what it could be. Literally a legal front for laundering money and skimming profit.
Yes.
So they have all this dirty cash coming in from narcotics, from loan sharks, from illegal gambling back in the East, and they needed somewhere to clean it. So Vegas was perfect for that. And the state kind of, like you were just saying, kind of doesn't resist this. It kind of turns a blind eye because the money's kind of too good to question. Probably that most people know, one of the most sort of famous casinos that's developed by Bugsy Siegel was the Flamingo, which still exists. And that was developed in the mid-1940s. And the funding from that comes from East Coast mob figures like Meyer Lansky. And unfortunately, people maybe know this story. It's quite a famous one. But Bugsy doesn't actually live to see the casino itself really thrive because he's assassinated in 1947. But it proved that the business model worked. It was flash. You had this casino, the Flamingo. It was legal and it was profitable. So during the 1950s, they just keep expanding. They don't just build new casinos, but they install people in management. They fix games. They run protection. They skim off the top. Do you know what that means?
Do I know what that means? Yes, I do.
Can you explain?
And I think it's important to note here, too, that there's... Yeah. People always, just because they want to be cool, they'll correct you and be like, actually, it's paradise, not Las Vegas. But in this particular circumstance, I think it's definitely noteworthy because there's a reason that the Las Vegas Strip isn't in Las Vegas. It's in unincorporated Clark County. And downtown is in Las Vegas. So technically speaking, for these people, when they're coming in, they're not operating out of the city of Las Vegas.
You told me something. I didn't realize that.
Paradise for the win, or Winchester, or
oh yeah. Well, that's what happens when you take when the iPhone assigns a location to your pictures. It's never if you're on the Strip, it's always like Winchester, Paradise, whatever. It's never seems
Enterprise.
Yeah. It always makes me.
I used to live in Winchester.
Cool. That's an interesting fact. But anyway, so essentially what they do is they take cash directly from the pit or the cage before it ever goes into the books. Essentially, that's what they're doing. So they're turning a profit on paper, but actually making way more money under the table. These casinos, some of them are reporting maybe $1 million in annual revenue, where in reality they're taking 3, 4, even 5 times that. And the skim happens way before any cash hits the official count, so it's basically invisible. And do you think they pay tax on it? Of course they don't pay tax on it. So it's essentially tax-free money for the mob. The problem they have is that kind of operation can't stay secret forever. And you start to see into the early 1950s concerns about organized crime bubbling up across the US. In the 1950s, there is a turning point that comes, and that's the Kiva Committee hearings. You heard of those?
I have not.
Okay, so they're like these televised hearings. They're named after a senator, Senator Kiva, and he chairs this committee investigating organized crime. The big deal is that they're televised. It's like one of the first. It was actually, I think it might be the first. I may be corrected on this. I think it was the first, or one of the first anyway, nationally televised congressional hearings in US history. So it's like true crime before true crime actually was a thing.
Wow.
And the mob, people over the country are watching these mob figures sort of testify on TV, sweating under the lights, taking the fifth. And Vegas keeps coming up. It's a recurring name. You can see footage of this on YouTube, by the way, if anyone's really interested. It's a recurring name: casinos, skimming, influence in unions. So suddenly the American public start to realize that this shiny desert paradise maybe was also a criminal paradise.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ominous music.
Yeah. And that brings a lot of heat to the state. And that means that Nevada officials are then caught in a dilemma. On one hand, they got all this money coming in. The casinos are making the state super rich. But on the other hand, they can't afford to let the industry go down in flames if the feds decide to step in. So what that leads to is, in 1959, Nevada taking maybe the most significant step it has ever taken to clean up the house, the Gaming Control Act. And that creates the Gaming Control Board and the Gaming Commission, which still exist, right?
It does. It very much does.
And holds the ultimate authority: licensing, discipline, enforcement. And that is what leads to the Black Book. And that is unveiled in 1960.
Wow. Little journey through time here.
Yeah. And the reason it becomes known as the Black Book is because it was literally that. It was a small black leather bound book with the names, photos, and criminal histories of people deemed too dangerous to step foot in a Nevada casino.
I mean, that's kind of the crazy part, right? Like, is it just sitting on like someone's desk for like all of time?
Yeah, well, exactly. And do you want to have a guess? You may know this, but do you want to have a guess as how many people were in that first version?
In the first version?
Yeah.
20.
11. Just 11. But they weren't petty cheats. They were the heavyweights, the sort of big crime families, the key figures in the sort of LA crime families.
Yeah, they're the guys who know guys.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea wasn't really just to punish them. It was to protect the industry. Nevada was saying, we're cleaning up. We don't care who you are. If you're a threat to the legitimacy of gaming, you're out. But the wildest bit is you didn't even need to be convicted of a crime. If your reputation was enough to damage public trust in the casinos, that was enough for them to put you in the book and exclude you.
Makes sense.
So it wasn't.
Well, especially if it's just like sitting on someone's desk. You just easily just kind of scribble in a couple names here and there. Yeah.
But it wasn't even about what you could prove. It was what they could prove. It was what they could believe. And it was almost reputation. This is what I would call it: reputation-based regulation, which was pretty radical for the time. Nowhere else had done this, and it worked. It became sort of one of their key tools, one of the sharpest tools in their sort of, I guess, arsenal to separate the image of Vegas from its darker roots. And of course, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean the mob vanished overnight, not at all. But it showed that the state was willing to police sort of its own, I guess I kind of feel like in Vegas, that's probably as close to revolution as you're going to get this time. So
that's true. It's like you said, it wasn't necessarily people they could prove, but sometimes, especially when there's not the same kind of legal precedent that there is now, sometimes you just don't want to take the chance of there being something you have to prove, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, let's just take that, thinking about that, let's break down how it actually works, because the Black Book isn't actually just folklore, even though it was literally a Black Book. It is a living legal instrument. There is an actual law that makes it possible. And it falls under the gaming law, NRS 463151, and the sections with that. Now, I'm not an expert in law or anything, so... but essentially, the law gives the Gaming Commission the power to create and maintain what they call a list of excluded persons. And it's not like a casual ban list like you'd see, in a bar or a local pub, as I would call it. It's a formal, public, government-issued exclusion from every licensed gaming property in the state. And now that expands even to racetracks, sports books, anywhere that is regulated under Nevada law. So, and once you're on it, that's it. You're kind of banned for life. It's considered a lifetime exclusion. You can petition to be removed, but it's extremely rare. And there is one guy who managed to get off of it, and I'm going to talk about it.
I thought someone did.
Yeah, there was one guy. And I think there's two criteria that they now use. And you only have to meet one of the criteria to end up in the book, so to speak, or on the list. The first is if you've been convicted of a felony related to gambling, dishonesty, fraud, or organized crime. So that's probably an easier one, like to sort of, I guess, signpost. And that doesn't mean if you have been convicted of those, you're in the book. It's just that's one way they can put you in. And the other one, and this is the one that actually is used most often, if you have a notorious or unsavory reputation that would hurt public confidence in Nevada's gaming industry.
Wow, those are words.
Yeah, it's basically vague. It's intentionally vague because it gives the commission leeway to act on someone's associations, not just their record.
Well, then the interesting thing too is like if you could petition to get off of that, if you're using the vague reasoning as to put them on, how do you unhave that reputation, I guess? Like, no, actually, I didn't have a felony, even though I did.
Yeah, exactly. You could end up on this list without actually technically ever setting foot in jail. And many have. And that's what makes the list kind of unique. It's almost like a preemptive ban. It's designed to stop problems before they happen.
And you think, too, even if you did manage to get yourself off the list, you're probably still barred at a lot of individual properties.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't have to. They can refuse service to anybody at any time for any reason, right? So why would they take the shot on it?
Exactly. They have no they have no reason to take that risk. Yeah. And once they sort of build this file up against you, because it's like anything, they construct this file of like reasons, evidence, I guess. There is then actually a public hearing, as in technically anyone could watch, which I was surprised about. I didn't realize that was going to be a thing. But the hearings are open to the public. They are recorded. The person who's facing exclusion is notified in writing and invited to appear. They can bring legal counsel. They can present evidence and challenge the claims, try to convince the commission not to vote them in. But the weird thing is, most people, maybe it's not weird. Maybe this is like because they know they're in a losing battle. But most people just don't even show up. So maybe they know they're already in a losing battle and they want to sort of bring more attention to themselves.
Maybe they're trying to keep a low profile.
Yeah. And those who do show up, the odds aren't great. The commission doesn't require the standard proof you'd see in a courtroom. They don't need this beyond a reasonable doubt kind of thing. All they need to do is be reasonably satisfied you're a threat to gaming integrity. And then they have a vote. And if it only takes a majority, once there's a majority, your name's added to the list. And at that point, you're banned from every casino and gaming floor in Nevada, period.
Well, I wonder, too, if it's one of those things where showing up in person isn't really something that can end up helping your case. Maybe just talk your way further into the hole. Unless it's something... Because you'd assume that if they're having that talk in the first place, it's already been proven that you've done something that's warranting this. So it's not like you're going to show up and be like, no, actually, I didn't do that. Here's what I did instead.
Yeah, exactly.
So
you don't want to...
You're probably just talking yourself into the hole further.
Yeah, and you may be wondering, okay, so what if they just ignore it and they just, yeah, whatever, I'm on this list, I'm going to ignore it. Well, apparently, if you ignore it, you can be charged with a misdemeanor, one step below a felony, I think. I'm not really you have different rules over there, so I'm not necessarily au fait with them, but essentially, I believe you can then end up with up to a year in jail, $2,000 fine, both. And if you keep doing it, if you keep repeatedly violating the exclusion, then you could end up facing felony charges.
I'm surprised that step one's just a misdemeanor, because that's like what you get for shoplifting or something. It's just kind of like hey, don't do that anymore.
Yeah, well, apparently that's what it is.
So you got to be a bad guy first.
Yeah.
Then you get the easy stuff afterwards.
Yeah. But the Great Gaming Commission actually as well, because you may now be thinking, okay, well, how do the casinos know who's on the list? The Gaming Commission makes the list public. You can literally go online right now and download the current version. And it includes names, photos, known aliases, dates of exclusion, sometimes even a little bit of an explanation. So I'm assuming, and you may know more about this than me, that casinos also integrate that into their sort of security surveillance systems. I'm guessing that staff are probably trained to recognize listed individuals. I don't know. Is there facial recognition technology if someone enters who's in the book? I don't know.
Yes, well, and I guess it depends on the property too, because some places just ID you when you get in. So I would assume you're already in the system as like this is just someone who can't.
That would be pretty dumb to try and get into a property where they ID you on your way in, though.
Yeah,
if you're in the book.
Well, maybe they're all signing up for players cards too. You got to get your comp rooms.
Yeah. Oh yeah, got to get those comps. That's
Imagine getting caught that way. Yeah, John Smith. We picked him up. He was signing up for a players card at the Players Club.
Yeah. But also, like, once you're in this book, it's not even just the law, right? It's the entire industry that's watching you. It basically does become pretty much impossible to gamble in the whole state. And even sort of like, let's imagine you're just trying to walk through a casino floor on the way to a hotel room. Even that can get you detained. But here's the thing. The commission doesn't hand these bans out lightly. You know, over 60 plus years, fewer than 100 people have ever been listed. And fewer than 40 are currently active, i.e. still around. Because it's, yeah, well, allegedly. But it's not like the black book isn't necessarily designed to catch everyone. It's designed to make examples of people. It's kind of like the nuclear button, the nuclear option, the way of the state drawing a hard boundary. And when they use it, it's to protect the credibility of the entire system. Because, like, when you think about it, the whole gambling economy runs on trust. If players think games are rigged or the casinos are corrupt, the whole thing is going to fall apart. People aren't going to visit that casino, or, you know, in an extreme case, that you know, maybe they're not going to visit Vegas anymore. So the Black Book is kind of a way that the state says, we don't allow that here. Kind of like casino exile.
Yeah, maybe a little bit too much 3-card Monty or whatever, right? Where's the red mean?
So, do you want to know, like, a little bit about sort of the names, some of the people that are in the book? The Rogues Gallery, maybe the more famous ones.
Well, I want to know all about this research you very clearly dove deep into. So,
okay, because it's not. Oh, thank you. It's not only so. It's not that. I mean, it's nice to know a little bit about it, but we really want to get into the juicy stuff. Who's in it? And this is why the Black Book is kind of has become a thing of legend. You know, greatest hits of scandals and mobs and cheaters. And I should probably point out that there is the Mob Museum in Vegas where you can visit if this is all sort of this kind of interests you and you'll find out a bit more about it. But probably the most iconic name on the list is Anthony Spilotro. Tony the Ant, as his nickname was. And he really shaped this image of Vegas in the 70s and 80s. And if you've seen the film Casino, the movie Casino,
there's a guy in the movie.
Yeah, there is many. Joe Pesci's character, who I believe is called Nicky Santoro, something like that, is a fictionalized version of Spilotro. But the real man was way more dangerous than the movie makes him look. He was born in Chicago. He was a man, sort of made man in the outfit, the Chicago Mafia. And he was sent to Vegas specifically to look after the mob's interests. And he wasn't subtle about it at all. He was known for using intimidation, violence, murder to keep people online. He was the enforcer who made sure money kept flowing back to those bosses in the Midwest. But
you were on a roll, so I didn't want to stop you. But it's Nicky Santoro.
Oh, Santoro, Nicky Santoro, cool. I say the character in Casino, Joe Pesci's character, right? Yeah. So, but
before we get flamed in the on Twitter or something.
But this didn't go on for long. By the sort of the late 70s, I think around 79, maybe early 80s, the Gaming Commission had enough, and they added him to the Black Book, citing, and the reasons they gave were his long criminal record and suspected role in dozens of illegal operations. Now, of course, he didn't take the hint. He just kept showing up at casinos, meeting with pit bosses, skimming. But then the FBI get involved, and the FBI are watching him closely. And in 1986, he and his brother were found buried in an Indiana cornfield and beaten to death. In what seems to have been an outfit-sanctioned hit. So he gets banned, keeps shut up anyway, and then gets murdered. So, but his story could become a blueprint for how or became the blueprint for how the Black Book could intersect with organized crime. It wasn't just a ban, it was a signal. Nevada was saying, you're not welcome here. And when he ignored that, it only added pressure on the mob to deal with it themselves, or to deal with him themselves.
Yeah.
So,
I like looking through the pictures of the people, which, by the way, for those of you at home, this is all public information. Through the state of Nevada. But I like they post the pictures too, which is kind of funny because you look at them all, you're like, yeah, those guys look like they could be banned from a casino.
Do any of them look like mobsters?
Do any of them look like mobsters? I would say easily 90% of them look like they.
But let's so not every name in the book though is a mobster. I would say even if 90% of them look like they are, some are just cheaters and some are famous for it. Do you know who? If I said to you famous cheaters in Vegas, would you throw any names at me? Do you know of any, or?
Not really. I mean, I feel like most of them are just people who hustle people too.
So there's a guy called Archie Karras. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
He's the dude that came to Vegas and with $50 in his pocket and won millions. He actually turned that initial $50 into over $40 million. And this is in the early 90s. It's basically it was considered, maybe still is considered, the greatest hot streak in gambling history. And he was playing high stakes poker against poker legends like Doyle Brunson, and he was beating them. But as quickly as it rose, it fell. And he lost almost all of it. And then in the years that followed, he turned to cheating. So he was caught using invisible ink, especially marked cards, to gain an advantage in blackjack. He was banned in California. He was banned in New Jersey. And then finally, in 2015, he was added to the Black Book.
Well, it's a time-consuming process,
So he went from being a legend there of turning $50 into 40 million to being banned from every casino.
Actually, kind of sucks, yeah.
Which what I think is interesting about him is his story combines both sides of Vegas. If you think about it, it combines the dream of beating the odds and then the reality of what happens when maybe you try and game the system too far.
Yeah.
And then there's a technical cheat. Charles Bubba, as his nickname, Silvestri, and he wasn't a player, he was a slot machine technician. So this is an inside man, an inside job. And effectively what he would do is he would reprogram slot machines or force payouts from them using illicit software, and literally did this for years. He ran this operation quietly for years before finally being caught. And that kind of sends shockwaves through the industry because it shows that even casino staff could pose a threat. So he's added to the Black Book in the 2000s. And that kind of says, look, we're not just watching players, we're watching employees too.
As it should be.
And have you heard about the twins that had the miniature computers in their shoes?
No.
So the Roselli twins, they were identical twin brothers, and they had miniature computers hidden in their shoes to predict outcomes in roulette games. So they were programmed, these devices, to track ball speed, wheel rotation, and timing. And based on those variables, they could predict with surprising accuracy where the ball would land. But they got caught in like loads of countries and eventually banned and eventually added to the book. So tech cheats, tech savvy cheats, that's the message to them when now watching you. So we've kind of gone from like mob enforcers to hackers and loafers.
Well, I mean, it's the way of the world now, too, right?
So, but today is more about hidden threats, right? Cheats who exploit surveillance gaps, inside information, technical vulnerabilities. It's not your mobsters as such anymore. Some are relatively unknown but dangerous. One man, for example, was added for consistently bringing in card counting teams to work blackjack tables across the state. Another had a history of switching chips, colluding with dealers. But I did mention earlier on the guy that got off the list. So let's talk a bit about him. His name was Jerry Bass, and he was added to the Black Book in the 1960s after multiple convictions of illegal bookmaking and gambling operations. But by like the 2010s, he was in his late 70s. He was living a quiet life, and he actually petitioned the commission, arguing that the ban was stopping him from attending community events like fundraisers and weddings held in casino hotels. And in 2013, they actually agreed, and they voted to remove his name. So that is the first, and I think only, confirmed removal in Black Book history. But he had to like show decades of, I guess, clean living. But that's like a unicorn case, so to speak. Most people stay on the list forever.
Yeah.
So
well,
whether you're a mobster, a hacker, or a once legendary gambler, it's the same rule. Threaten the credibility of the game, and you're banned. So I guess we've looked now at where it came from, how it works, who got caught. But, you know, where it gets, I guess, interesting, where people have heard about it, is this fact of it's part of this sort of Vegas mythology. It's like Vegas's own version. I like to call it Vegas's own version of an urban legend, except it's not an urban legend because it's real. And one of the main reasons why it's such a legendary thing is because of Hollywood and Casino, the movie Casino, Martin Scorsese's epic. Have you seen the movie?
Have I seen Casino? Yes.
I mean, that guy's like a kind of a dumb question. But it's based on real events, real mob figures, real skimming scandals that led to those crackdowns in the 70s and 80s. And, you know, it's important that those sort of scenes in there where Santoro, the character, keeps showing up, because that illustrates what the Black Book was. You know, it's not just a ban, but a warning. And it says this person is radioactive. This presence of this person undermines the game. And that kind of message resonated with audiences. And since then, the Black Book has popped up all over the place. TV documentaries, reality-based casino shows. I've even seen it mentioned in poker forums. Like, do this, you'll end up in the Black Book. It's kind of comes with a bit of a joke too. You hear players say, count too well and they'll Black Book you. You know, or that's guy's Black Book material. But in reality, card counting, as we know, is not illegal. I think we mentioned that in one of our other episodes.
Well, and then you mentioned Casino too, which I'm sure inspired all this, but card counting reminds you, like 21 also kind of alludes to similar stuff like this. Like a back room and stuff, which, you know, maybe back in the day it's more of a thing. Now it's absolutely not. I mean, Las Vegas, the TV show, had it all too.
Oh, that TV show. I used to like that TV show.
I have to, here's how old I am, Gen Z. I have it all on DVDs. Box set.
I have it on DVD too.
Yes, every once in a while I'll go back and watch it. I'm pretty sure it's like the only reason that I still own a DVD player. Well, a Blu-ray player. I'm at least not like that ancient, but you know.
But it's almost like the book, I guess, is this internal security symbol. It's not flashy, but everyone knows what it means. You know, casino workers, I would imagine, know about it. Dealers, pit bosses, security staff, you know, especially the ones that have worked in Vegas for a long time. I would imagine, like, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess the Black Book is treated with genuine respect. You know, it's not necessarily something that most tourists know about. The average visitor to Vegas maybe doesn't even realize, but I feel like in the industry, and for people like us that are interested in this industry and are doing podcasts on this industry, it's kind of part of the culture. And when you think about it, it kind of plays that role, its own sort of strange role. And I kind of like to look at it in this way. In the way Vegas tells its own story about how the city sort of brands itself on the surface. You know, that whole, and I know they're moving away from it, but that whole marketing plan that they had where they were saying what happens here stays here, you know.
Well, it's what happens here only happens here now.
Oh, is it? They've changed it to that, right? So,
well, yeah, because the rise of social media, you know, what happens here stays here isn't really true anymore.
But it's like, it's regulated, it's monitored, it's constantly surveyed. You know, the Black Book sits at an intersection of those two identities. And it's a reminder that yes, Vegas is about risk, but it's also about control. If you cross the line, you're out permanently. And that permanence is important. The Black Book doesn't reset after a decade. There's no time out. You could be 85 years old, even 30 years. And unless the commission votes you out, you're still banned.
Well, and let's clarify too, because we talked way back into the mob era. You're talking that people in the book are people who, like, the cops have decided need to be excluded. Back then, the mob, they excluded plenty of their own people in their own way, right? That's where all the holes in the desert, or, you know, allegedly those the people washing up in Lake Mead in the barrels now, which, like, you can't convince basically anybody in Las Vegas that that's not mob related.
Yeah, that's
so
kind of...
They got their own Black Book, and they don't even have to write anyone's name on it.
That's kind of a frightening thing. That, like, I wonder how many people are out there that we don't know about that are sort of hidden, and well, I don't like the thought of that for some reason.
Well, I mean, as they expand Las Vegas residential, who knows? Maybe they'll find some stuff.
But they must, like, when they're building these casinos, they must find these sort of random bodies and stuff. I don't know. Maybe not. But yeah. So, where did I get to? Yeah. So I think, you know, it sort of has become, in a weird way, this infamous part of Vegas history. It's not a conviction. It's not a jail sentence, but it's kind of a branding in some ways. It's got its own brand to it. You know, I wonder if, like, for some people in the underground gambling world, it's kind of like being in the Black Book is a badge of honor. I don't know. Like, I wonder if that's the case. It means you're dangerous enough, skilled enough, or brazen enough to get noticed by the gaming establishment. Like, being banned kind of makes you cooler. Maybe it's like a bit of a paradox. I don't know.
It's definitely an interesting piece of your resume.
Yeah. All right. So I guess, like, what I kind of wanted to end on is, what does it actually mean in the modern era? What does it look like in 2025? Does it still matter? In a world where every move inside a casino is tracked anyway, like maybe I'm assuming by facial recognition, maybe that's not the case, but by heat maps, by AI. I don't know. Does that kind of thing exist? I would think so.
I mean, it's constantly evolving, right? There's numerous different facial recognition technologies and stuff like that. Yeah, I would assume, as you mentioned, the presence of AI is only going to benefit, especially like casino surveillance and stuff like that's abilities.
But the Black Book is sort of one that, you know, you kind of wonder if, like, technology should have made it obsolete by now. And that's kind of, I guess, a fair point. And it's one I would imagine the regulators have sort of wrestled with too. But on paper, the Black Book is old school. It's a printed list, a PDF on the Gaming Commission website, updated maybe a few times a year. But in practice, it plays a crucial role in how, you know, as I said, the state manages reputational risk.
I think it's kind of cool. It's still, as far as even from a legal standpoint, they can look at it and be like, yeah, well, we have that. But more importantly, I think it's like a deterrent, kind of almost like a place's surveillance department in general. It's more one of those, you know, it exists, so it prevents you from doing stuff because they probably are going to catch you. So I think it's more just that this is an option kind of thing. So maybe stay away from doing those kind of things.
And as of today, the active list, as I said earlier, contains fewer than 40 names. That's incredibly selective, considering like how many people must pass through the casinos each year. We're talking tens of millions of people. And I think that's because it's not meant to be a net. It's a scalpel. It's not about volume. It's about making examples. So, these are the cases where the state is saying this person isn't just a problem for one casino. They're a risk to this whole entire system. And we talked about, the sort of some examples of people on there. The latest ones, if you really look into them, is mainly people that have used technology to cheat far more than sort of mob ties. Bet timing software, tools for analyzing slot machines, and micro delays to predict when a machine is due for a jackpot. Things that are maybe legal in theory, but when paired with insider knowledge, and concealment of devices, maybe that's kind of a different story. And sort of cheating syndicates. I think that's what the regulators are particularly wary of. Groups of people working together across sort of multiple properties, using sort of hidden tech maybe to gain unfair advantage. So.
And I wonder what the mob would have thought if they had a chance to fast forward into looking at the future. I mean, these are guys who they're running the casinos just to get the skim, right? But now we got 6 to 5 blackjacks, roulette. I wonder what they would think about all that.
Yeah.
They're probably like, oh, wait, we can actually get away with it legally?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that, like, to sum up, the Black Book is sort of a public state-level declaration. It's like saying this isn't just one property's decision. It's the entire state drawing the line. It's a deterrent, not just for cheaters, but for would-be insiders, dealers, stuff, maybe slot techs. If you abuse your access, there's not just a risk of losing your job, there's a risk of being shut out forever. Bearing in mind, this is a state where gaming makes up nearly 40% of the total tax revenue. That matters. It's incredibly important. So the Black Book is kind of like that. I think it still exists because it's kind of like that ultimate reputation manager. It's Vegas say we might deal in luck, but we don't leave anything to chance. Which is kind of a paradox at the heart of Nevada gaming, right? The whole system is built to feel like chaos. Flashing lights, noise, randomness, but behind the scenes,
lights and dice.
Yeah, lights and dice. But behind the scenes, it's actually one of the most tightly regulated industries in the world, and the Black Book is part of that regulation. It tells cheats and criminals will tolerate a lot, while bets, crazy losses. Maybe we'll tolerate eccentric high rollers, but we're not going to tolerate anyone who threatens the fairness of the game. So, well, I guess that kind of brings us to the end of this little deep dive into the Black Book, from its roots in Mobland, Vegas, to its role in policing higher tech cheaters of today. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I enjoyed your deep dive into it. You've clearly done a lot of research.
I find it quite fascinating. And people this is like just kind of a different episode for us, I suppose. But if you've enjoyed it, please let us know. If you want more episodes like this, we'd be happy to perhaps oblige. Doesn't have to necessarily be a history lesson, but we can deep dive into some other sort of topics surrounding, not only even Vegas, but casinos in general, a little bit of travel in there too. But please let us know. And also, if you've enjoyed the episode, please, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave us a review. Just maybe even you don't even have to do that. Just share the podcast, share the episode with someone who's sort of fascinated by this sort of thing, by Vegas, by the hidden gears behind the Vegas machine.
But also subscribe and everything.
Yeah, and also subscribe.
You don't have to, but you should do that.
Please do.
Be a lot cooler if you did.
Chris, any last thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm glad that neither of us are on this list, so we're keeping up the good work here.
That was going to be my final thought. I was going to say to you, whatever you do, don't end up on the list. Stay lucky, play fair, but don't end up on the list. Don't end up in the Black Book.
Oh, we got a slogan there.
That's just something I just came up with on top of my head. I don't know if that sounded cool or really stupid.
Well, it did sound cool, but it sounded like something you'd like rehearsed in the mirror kind of thing, It's impressive you came up with it.
I don't know if that's a strangely veiled compliment or not. Do you think I would normally be able to?
No. I feel like it was a very formulated statement
Well,
that it's impressive. It just popped into your mind because it sounds like something that you had loaded.
well, I appreciate that. If you want to give us a follow on social media at Lights and Dice on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Also the same address on Instagram. You can email us studio@lightsanddice.com. Get in touch. Let us know what you think. Message us on X if you want to. A few people have done that. I love sort of interacting with our listeners, taking on board your feedback. So we can keep making the best content for you guys. You may have noticed, and I just wanted to touch on this, we're not like necessarily recording an episode a week because we want to just keep this content regular but high quality. So when we've got like some good ideas or something we really want to talk about, we're aiming for high quality stuff. And I think that's sort of what we've done these 5 episodes. It feels good to have made it to 5. I feel like we're on the...
Yes, we are seasoned veterans at this point.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't necessarily go that far, but we're definitely, we're not one-hit wonders, shall we say. We've survived this long. So thank you once again, everybody, for listening. Hopefully we'll see you in Vegas soon. Subscribe. Have a great day.